The antiderivative of 1 over x squared, it is maybe nice to see this with its power. So I can write this as power -2, and then the power rule tends to be a little bit easier to apply. So I end up with x to the power -1. I need to make sure I account for that power -1, and then we have plus c. And this works out to be -1 over x plus c. So that's my antiderivative function. Now, it's okay to do this, but it would be good to start being able to go directly from here to here as you become more fluent with this, but this takes practice. But the more practice you have, you may want to start skipping that intermediate step. For f, we can apply the power rule here. So I'm going to anti-differentiate this. So I'm going to end up with -2. So -2, I'm going to increase the power by 1. So -4/3 plus 1 is going to be -1/3. I need to account for that power with a divide by -1/3. Now I'm going to have to make sure I clean that all up. Minus, well, 3 is an exponential function, so I'm going to just write the same thing that I had. Okay, it stays the same, but it's a non-base e, so I have to account for that with a divide by log base 3. I also have this negative here, my horizontal compression, that I have to make sure I account for with a divide by -1 or multiply by -1. The last one here, we have to be really careful because this is not a power rule, and we'll show why it doesn't work with power rule. That one we're just going to become, it's just going to become log of absolute value of x. Okay, so this is a special one, and we'll talk about this in a second. And then plus c. We should really clean up this algebra, so the negatives in the first term are going to cancel. Divide by 3, say 1/3 is same as timesing by 3, so I end up with 6. And then because it is a negative power, that should end up in the denominator. So I'm going to end up with 6 in the numerator over x to the power -1/3, or the cube root of x. The negatives here cancel, so I'm going to end up with plus, and this is just 3 to the power -x plus 2, and that's all over log 3. And then minus log absolute value x plus c. For this one here, we're going to maybe rewrite this with our powers, because these are all power rule. And again, be careful because we do not want to apply, just because it's in the denominator, we do not apply log. These are not the same. Okay, same with this one here. It's not the same as a 1 over x. Okay, this is not the same. So these ones we're going to use power rule. So we end up with power 4 minus power -3 minus power -1/2. And applying power rule, we're going to end up with x to the power 5 over 5 minus x to the power -2 over -2, x to the power positive 1/2 over 1/2 plus c. And again, we should really simplify this, so this is going to be -x5 over 5 plus 1/2, and then x squared is in the denominator. This is going to be minus, but dividing by 1/2 is same as multiplying by 2, and then power 1/2 is square root plus c. So we talked about this a little bit before, is that the exception to the power rule is this 1 over x. 1 over x, if we tried to apply the power rule, we run into a problem. So since this is really dy by dx is equal to x to the negative 1, applying the power rule, we're going to end up with add 1, we're going to end up with power 0. Now that doesn't seem to be too big of a problem, but we have to account for that power by dividing. And we're going to divide by that power, which means that we're going to end up dividing by 0. Now this is a big problem. And this is why we cannot apply a power rule. Okay, we can't apply the power rule because we end up with this divide by 0. So the 1 over x is a special function. The 1 over x, it anti-differentiates into 1 over log x. Okay, it's special. This is a special function. And we're actually going to see that this is a special function in many different ways. As we go through calculus, we're going to see that 1 over x is a special function in many ways, and this is just one of them. The other thing that we have to be careful of is, so we have to be careful that we can apply power rule, but if we did apply power rule to 1 over x, we actually run into a little bit of a problem. Okay, and we can probably recognize that, oh, this is a problem, I probably did something wrong. But one thing that we have to be careful of is the reverse as well. So we cannot apply power rule, or so we cannot apply log when we have something like this. So 1 over x squared. This, we cannot do this with a log. Okay, this is a big no-no. We only apply the log when we have power 1. Okay, so when we have, when the power is not 1 in the denominator, must apply power rule. Or we'll just say must use power rule. Not log. Okay, so this is important as well. So it's important to apply log when we have the power 1 in the denominator, but the reverse is also just as important. Do not apply the log when the power is not 1. Okay, we apply power rule in this case. So the example I gave was power squared in the denominator. We do not, this is wrong. We do not use a log in this case.